Hello students, welcome back to the chapter Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants. Students, today in this video, that is in lecture 9, we are going to discuss about wind pollination and water pollination. So let's begin with wind pollination. If the plants are getting pollinated through the agency of the wind, then it is called as a wind pollination. Wind pollination can also be called as anemophilly. The plants which are having such adaptations are called as anemophilous plants. This is considered to be the most primitive type, as plant flower is not undergoing any sort of adaptations so as to attract any sort of organisms. Produce the plants which are getting pollinated through wind will be producing unisexual flowers. Let us try to understand floral adaptations for anemophily. You can see here in the image the flowers which are getting pollinated through the agency of the wind will be small in size. They will be not beautiful, so they are called inconspicuous. They are not brightly colored, as they are not going to attract any of the organism. They will not even produce a nectar, as insects will not visit these flowers, and they also not produce a fragrance. All these are said to be the adaptation of the plants having anemophily. The petals and the sepals which will be there, they'll be highly reduced and they'll be green in color. So this can be asked for 3 marks. So here is one of a corn plant, a monocot plant which gets pollinated through the agency of the wind. So if the flowers are unisexual, what happens? The male flowers will be produced at the upper region and they'll be more in number, because the chance of getting pollinated will be very less, and they'll be in the higher region of the plant, whereas the lower region of the plant will have a female flower, so that pollen grains can get deposit onto the female flower easily. So this is the image of one of the anemophily plant, where you can see stamens are having long filament so that the anthers can flutter in the air, and such anthers are called versatile. This is the image of a plant where anthesis has taken place, that is the dehiscence of the anther, and you can see here dust like a structure, they are the pollen grain. Pollen grains will be produced extremely large in the number. So pollens which are there, they'll be smaller, they'll be pale yellow, and they'll be lightweight so that they can get carried away through the agency of the wind. So this is the corn plant, where we can see the carpels will be with a long style and it will be feathery stigma so that they can catch the pollen grain. This is another plant, that is grass, which gets pollinated through the agency of the wind. Maize gets pollinated through the agency of the wind. Jawar, here is plant sugarcane. This also gets pollinated through the agency of the wind. Anemophily is nothing but plants which get wind pollinated, and the pollen grains will be lighter in color. They are colorless. They are odorless, they are lighter in weight, they are colorless, they are odorless, they are nectarless. And pollen grains are smaller in size, they are light, they are dry, and also they'll be dusty. Stigma will be large and it will be well exposed and will be hairy and will be feathery. Tassels of the corn comb, if you have seen, if you have eaten the corn, hairy structures will be there, and those are nothing but the feathery stigma. So these are the few adaptations. So flower will be produced, they will be smaller in size, they will be born on the long stem well above the leaves, they are not scented, no nectar, stamens have a long filament, anthers will be versatile, pollens produced in large number. The plants belonging to family Poaceae, bamboos and sugarcane show such type of adaptation. Now coming to pollination through the agency of the water. So if the plant is getting pollinated through the agency of the water, then it is called hydrophily. Plants having such adaptations are called hydrophilous plants. Some of the aquatic plants make excellent use of water. Here are two plants which are getting pollinated through the water: Vallisneria and Zoostera marina and Hydrophilum and Hydrilla. This type of pollination is restricted only to 30 genera of the monocot plants. So here is a plant which is showing different type of adaptations for hydrophily. The flowers which are getting pollinated through the agency of water will be unisexual. They will be smaller in size. They are not beautiful. They are not brightly colored, as they are not going to attract insects. They are not going to produce a nectar, and also they will not produce any odor. So here is the pollen grain and other floral parts will be unwettable, means they won't undergo decay. They are coated with the mucilage. A special gravity of the pollen grain is controlled by the formation of one or more starch grains in the pollen grain. See, here is stigma is long and sticky. Hydrophily is classified into two types. The first one is called as a Hypohydrophili, where from the anther will be transferred to the stigma within the water. So it is called Hypohydrophili. If the pollen grains of the anther get pollinated onto the stigma above the water surface, then it is called Epihydrophili. So we are going to discuss here the pollination in Vallisneria. It is said to be Epihydrophili. The female flowers in Vallisneria will reach the surface of the water by producing a long stalk, as you can see here, and the male flowers are also going to release the pollen grains onto the surface. The pollen grains will be carried through the agency of the water current, and once they come in contact with the stigma of the female flower, they bring pollination. So pollination in Vallisneria can be asked for 2 marks. Practice this. Now coming to Hypohydrophili, where pollen grains get transferred onto the stigma within the surface of the water, that is called Hypohydrophili. So what happens here can be understood with the help of the plant, that is Zoostera marina. Plants are going to produce both male and female flowers inside the water. Male flower is going to produce needle like a pollen grains which lack exine, and these pollen bear a specific gravity so that they can float below the water surface, and once they come in contact with the stigma, they are going to get wrapped around or coiled around the stigma, and they are going to germinate and bring pollination. Example in seagrass. So this is another example by name Zoostera marina, which is example for hydrophily. Hydrophilum is another example for hydrophily. So in this video we discussed about wind pollination and water pollination, whereas in the next video we are going to discuss about ornithophily and entomophily. Thank you, students.